Welcome to Gamestorm, a podcast where I sit down with a new game designer, artist, or creative every episode as we design a new game from scratch. My goal is to bring the creative process of design to the forefront. Come join us if you're into wacky, small indie games, hearing designers talk about their process, or if you want to follow along with the episode and design your own game to one of our prompts. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gamestorm. I hope you guys have been enjoying the season so far. This episode, we have Phil Vasquez with us. Here to design a game in an episode. Phil, if you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Phil. I am a game designer and theater maker in Chicago. And yeah, I do a lot of gaming. It's been a little while since I've done some theater, but I'm looking to get back into it. Yeah, beyond that, if you need some beer or if you need a beer hookup, let me know if you're in the Chicagoland area.
Do you work at a brewery?
I do. I work at a beer shop called Beer Miscuous.
I believe you've mentioned that at one of the Playtest Chicago sessions.
Quiet plug here. If you're looking for a beer shop in Chicago with like coffee shop vibes and you need to work there, it's a great place to get some stuff done.
What neighborhood is that in?
There is one in kind of like the Lakeview-ish neighborhood. It's at Lincoln and Diversey. I actually work at the one. There's one in the North Burbs, in just north of Highland Park in Highwood.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's around where I used to work.
Oh, really?
Big commute.
Oh, yeah.
But I was at a corporate job, so it was awful. Awesome. Well, let's jump into it. I've just spun our prompt. For those of you who don't know, Gamestorm is a podcast about making games improvisationally. So every episode we spin a new prompt or design conceit, and we jump straight into making a game. Each episode brings us out with an entirely different game, and we put each of them up on itch, or you can find them on the Patreon as well. And for this episode, I've spun the prompt building/making maps. So that would be a core mechanic.
Yeah.
Something deep in. And so clarification here, because I think I've run into this a couple of times. The core mechanic doesn't have to be the entire mechanic of the game, although
Sure.
It can be. Like, that's sometimes a fun restriction to place. But if we want to have a game where, like, the pre-game is building the map, and then the actual game is like light roleplay stuff or something like that, that's fine too. So
Cool.
My first question with this would be, are there any genres or themes or like strong game ideas that have been sticking on your mind recently that you haven't had a place to like develop?
Oh man, what a fun question. I find that like genre and theme is like I'm so like mechanics driven and like delivery method driven that like I find that genre and theme almost like detrimentally come last in my brain, if that makes any sense. So that is tough. Like, of course, there's like so many things. Of course, like I have occasionally I do have an idea for like a adventure gaming themed in kind of like a diesel punk Mad Maxy type of vibe, which would be a lot of fun. I find that music helps get me into genre and themes. So like when I'm listening to a lot of like stoner metal and that type of stuff, I think diesel punk in that kind of vibe. So that could be kind of cool. But beyond that, I've been messing around with a different game that I like randomly rolled theme, and I do find that like for me sometimes random roll theme is a lot of fun too. Like I found a Viking frog theme based on random roll tables, and that's just something I would never have gotten to before.
So when you say random roll theme, you mean like that's part of the game, is figuring out what your theme is through like random rolls?
I hadn't thought about that. I've used that as a methodology to like help me get to theme, but I actually don't mind something, especially if like raw map making is where we are starting with. Like I don't mind discovering like here's the land, what is this land, like here are the boundaries of the land, if that makes sense. And what is the world within this. I don't mind it kind of introducing that into the as a mechanic into the game as well.
Well, and something that's worth thinking about too is like, so map making games, there's a whole bunch of different games that integrate engaging with a map. The first one that pops to mind, just because it's the most recent one I played, was Before the Flood. And we had kind of a mixed experience with that. It splits up the roles of what you do, and the whole game is drawing a map and like coming up with the lore of this big world. And because of that, they have a bunch of tables of like, these are all of the things that can end up in these different places. And some of them are pretty open-ended. Some of them are a little bit more closed. And it splits up all the different roles of who's adding what to the map. So like there's one person who's like drawing, and we had kind of a mixed experience with it because it felt like it was too split up. So like there were when you were building the map, there were people who were just like sitting around kind of twiddling their thumbs too often.
Sure.
But the core idea of something like that where you're building a map is very interesting to me. And something that is interesting is unless all of your prompts are very open-ended, you almost need a set theme for that.
Agreed. And I think that is, if you're doing something to that effect, like you definitely like, even if you have a prompt table that has ruins as a like potential prompt, like that says something about your world already, no matter what.
Yep.
So yeah, you do kind of need to have a theme or a place in mind, a time, a world, kind of worked out if that's kind of the direction you're going.
Yeah. So when you think a game about building a map,
mm-hmm.
do your thoughts do you immediately think macro or micro?
I think macro
that's where my brain goes too.
Sure, I think macro right off the top. Like I am such a proponent of using other things to like make a game, and using like objects outside of just the dice and the things that we are used to. Like I love games like Dread, and I love
Sure.
Things that use just kind of like unique, or using like drawing tarot cards, that type of thing. So like immediately when you say map making, my mind goes to the like all the methodologies that people have for making like topographical maps for D&D. So like dumping your rice on your page and
Dumping your rice.
Yeah, I've seen people like dumping or like beans or something to that effect. And
I have never heard of that.
Yeah, so like you lay out like a map and like you either just drop rice or beans and things in a pile, and like the way that they organically spread out, you kind of outline. Same with like I've even seen like spill coffee on a page on purpose.
Interesting.
And suddenly like that's the outline of your map.
Yeah, just ways to get more organic looking shapes.
Right, exactly. Organic looking shapes. And
organic is a weird word to use there.
Slant. Listen, I think it works.
Yeah, no, but I've seen people do the whole like roll up a pile of dice and then like draw stuff around them.
There's something
that usually ties some other mechanics.
Because that makes me think of there's some really quick like dungeon creation tools in Shadowdark RPG that are very much like that are like toss your dice and then where they land is where they are, like where this room in the dungeon is, and then whatever number the dice lands on is also informs like what is in that room of the dungeon.
Yeah. My brain briefly jumped to like, what about like a game where half of the game there is more of a focus on some sort of narrative, but half of the game is like building the map out in front of you, and there's some like narrative to that, just because there's might be some like fun to that mechanically of like
totally.
Also, we've been talking a lot about this. Jesse who's also from Story Games Chicago, and a couple of other people as well, but Jesse especially have been talking a lot about what exploration is, and something that comes to my mind from that conversation is one of Jesse's like firm beliefs around it is the idea that you're not exploring if you're looking for something, because then you're searching instead, and that's like a different vibe. You might find things along the way, but you're not exploring, and that's something that has always been really interesting to me, because it's not something I ever really thought about to that depth before until we started having these conversations. And saying out loud that idea of like people figuring out what the thing is before them from something that is like unknown. The only problem with that is when you're generating it also isn't really exploring, because then you're just creating something. But there's a lot of those ideas jumbled around in my head right now. So
yeah, it's really interesting. It's kind of like the juxtaposition between, say, if we're thinking 5e thoughts, like if difference between an investigation versus a perception check, like there is so much overlap there, but yet one of them is a little bit more tactile, and one of them is a little bit more like brain oriented, and one of them is just like seeing. And
plenty of people don't care about the difference, right? Like I think that's probably true with searching versus exploring as well. I'm sure there are some people who would be like, feels the same to me. But that is just in my mind as I'm thinking about like what does it look like if there is going to be some engagement with the map in this game, rather than just a game where you build the map in the world.
Interesting, yeah. That is oh, that yeah, I can see where you say you talked for hours about this. That is a fraught this whole episode could turn into that conversation if we're
Oh,
not
it
careful.
could. It totally could. Quick, let me call Jesse. Bring him on. We
Yes,
can have a
let's do it.
three-person call. Uh,
Cool. So like, yeah, man, I do really, I kind of like I mean, I wonder if there are two different phases, like you said, of like, is one phase map creation, and is there a second phase of the game that is about like searching for something or finding something, like in interacting with the map that you have now created? I wonder if that is kind of, and that differentiates a little bit between that, like searching versus just pure exploration. Now, like you said, if we're making the world from scratch, like the pure generative aspect of that is kind of like searching or exploring, but I suppose we're not looking for anything. So, like, if we're not looking for anything, perhaps it is like really great to embrace randomness in the like map, in the like world generation or the
mhm.
boundaries of the map generation, and then go on.
Well, and we don't have to get super bogged down in like whether or not the game is exploring, right? Like
Yeah.
I think more so it might be interesting if we just pick a set of mechanics that we think is really interesting, and then we can interrogate whether or not it's exploring or not after the fact.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like what you're saying, like I think engaging with the randomness makes a lot of sense here. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna, for example, you're a party of people who's traveling out into a new place, and maybe your entire reason is just we want to learn more about it, and you have no specific goal. You're just generally trying to like figure stuff out and find things
Mm-hmm.
and see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe the generation aspect could feel like exploring, and then it
That
becomes. But I don't know
yeah.
that I think we would have to build it and play it, right? Like,
Sure. Like that image immediately reminds me of like the experience of the very first Fallout game, or
mm,
of one of the like again, post-apocalyptic is such a uh, such a heavy theme, but that we all
yeah,
love to play, and for any type of fantasy or sci-fi. But that like coming out of your hole and
sure.
genuinely not knowing what type of world you're going to see.
I do love those sorts of themes. It also sort of sets you up. Well, and it sort of depends on what happens before that, if there is anything before that. But
Hmm.
in the Fallout games, they sort of set you up for like there could be anything, which allows them to do kind of whatever they want out in the world. But
Yeah.
they have just the slightest bit of theming injected, and well, I shouldn't say slightest bit because it's a decent amount, but they have the bit of theming and the bit of like world injected into the bit when like in Fallout 3 when you're the kid doing the birthday and you're doing the
Right.
tests later, and
Right.
so there's enough of that stuff where like you have some expectations, but not enough so that like everything that's going to be out there.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe it. Oh man, I really now I'm loving this idea of like either coming out of um your Fallout shelter, coming out of your hibernation hole. I mean, I
Breath of the
say is that
Wild.
yeah, right, right. You come out of your hibernation hole, you come out, and it's like what I've been locked away for so long. Like genuinely, what is this world
Breath of the
that
Wild
I'm
is an interesting one too because there isn't really any expectation for what the world is set for the players unless you're familiar with Zelda games.
and even right, exactly, and even if you are, like, there is so much that is different about
Uh-huh.
how those characters in those places are represented. I mean, throughout every Legend of Zelda game, right? Like, you know that there's going to be those set pieces that are there, but they can change every single time.
The thing that's interesting to me though is like if I'm imagining like a kid playing playing Breath of the Wild as their first ever Zelda game, I can imagine a world where they leave that first tomb thing,
Hmm.
hibernation chamber. I don't remember if they call it something specific, but
Uh,
and they go out and they have zero expectations for what the world is, like absolutely none, because they don't really set you up to have any expectations. They basically are just like, I need you to save me, and then that's it, and they're like, go crazy. So
Yeah.
that is markedly different than how like Fallout does it, for example.
Totally. Yes. You leave any Fallout shelter immediately with a goal.
Yeah.
You leave immediately with a go to this place.
And with some sort of like grounding in the setting for the most part too.
Right.
Like
100%.
so, which is very interesting. I do love this idea of like explorers going out from a place where they could have no knowledge of the rest. I don't know why, but have you ever watched Gurren Lagann, the anime?
No, I've never watched it.
Okay, so I don't know why this just popped into my head, but I'll briefly explain. So in Gurren Lagann, there's like it's a Gundam anime kind of,
Okay.
but I mean I say kind of, but it basically is. But there are like these aliens who have come to Earth and taken over the surface with their big Gundams, and all of the people have gone underground, and they live in these underground cities, and they've lived there for so long that they don't remember what the surface world is like, and so they have like completely distinct culture, and they for a handful of them they like fully are cut off. And I just immediately thought of like something like that where you've been down there long enough that you don't really know what everything else is, and it's all just legends, and there's been enough time that it's probably all changed anyway.
Yeah.
So that comes to my mind pretty immediately as a touchstone. I haven't talked about Gurren Lagann in ages. Whoa.
Outstanding. See, look at this.
Yeah.
We're bringing it all back. We're dredging it all up.
But something like that is kind of interesting in the context of a game where like your starting framing is like, this is my home. This is where like I, come from, and I know nothing about the outside, and all that I hear is like legends and prophecy.
Ooh, whoa, that is very, very fun. I love where we're starting here of this, like, yes, this is my home, this is all I know. The world is coming up. I really like using rumor. I guess like it's a rumors table basically, but like
Yeah.
legends and prophecy about the world as things that could be true and things that don't necessarily have to be true.
A
But I
legends
really
and prophecy table is fantastic.
yeah,
That is very good.
yes, a legend and prophecy table about where you uh, what could be up there or down there, wherever we end up going, whatever direction we end up going.
Yeah. My brain's kind of exploding already, but I already am thinking of like ways that you could kind of modularize a game like this so that the players pick the legends and prophecies that their like place believes in,
Yeah,
and those determine how you roll up the world.
that's
So you
what
could
I
yeah.
yes, 100%. I think that was if you pick a legend and prophecy, perhaps. Yeah, that has to have some type of bearing on what happens on the map, but I think that it has to. We also have to treat like legends and prophecies as what they are, which is pure rumors. So like they're not necessarily all true, or they've been what the news that has gotten down to wherever your player is coming from is certainly altered or is certainly a century old, right?
Yeah, this makes me think a lot of this has been stuck on my brain so much since playing
Go
Mythic
on.
Bastionland, but this makes me think a lot of myths from Mythic
I
Bastionland.
still haven't played it, but I really it's on my list. I definitely need to play it like this
Yeah.
winter.
No, it's good. I ran like a mini campaign for some people in the Story Game Chicago Discord and a couple of people who I just knew through friends of friends and stuff, and it was very fun. Like the system is so compact
Hmm.
that it's just very easy to run through, and the myths are by far the best part of.
Explain. Can you like expound on that?
Yeah, so in the book, there's like 20 pages of rules, and then there's like 150 pages of myths and lore.
Yeah.
And well, I guess I should say it's myths, knights, and lore. So
Okay.
each spread has a knight on one page and a myth on the other. And the knight is a character class option, basically. So they have their own weapons, their own abilities, their own unique stuff. It's very OSR in the sense that like your unique abilities are pretty like simple and
Yeah.
not crazy. On
Love
the
that.
on the knight page, it also has the seer that knighted you, which these are like these sort of like heady, crazy, weird, fucked up guys who are magical and mystical and no one really understands. And so every spread of the lore bit has a knight, a seer, and then on the other side, and they have a bunch of other like random information sprinkled
Yeah.
in.
Cool.
And on the other side, they have the myths, and the myths are the name of a myth, a poem, so that you can like read it out to your players, and it like implies sort of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
6 omens that
Mm-hmm.
through the travel system, you roll up omens, and they kind of guide your players towards the myths so that they can go find them and solve them.
Sure.
And those omens all tie to a couple of different like character stat blocks and a couple of small tables that all tie back into the myth. So basically, a myth is everything you need to run like multi-session engaging mystery / whatever, because some of them are very different. Some are like a bit of mystery, but then it's mostly just combat encounters. Some of them are like a bit of mystery, and it's actually just all mystery, and they kind of vary quite heavily.
Cool.
For example, there's one that we ran into that was like a tournament against Clockwork Knights, where they were like challenging to like take over the realm or whatever. And there's another where there's like a judge who keeps appearing in black and white and judging knights and like executing some of them and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of stuff in there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do really love that. I mean, like you said, now this kind of focuses and frames a little bit of how you're saying that, like, if there is a like a Legends and Prophecies table, like whatever legend and or prophecy that gets picked or by the players or gets rolled, say, by the players, whatever, then that legend or prophecy should have a corresponding table, randomize something that will then inform what is actually in the world.
That's sort of what I was thinking too, is like, and maybe that means for like whatever exploration looks like, whether that's just like the exploration phase or something.
Yeah.
In that phase, it almost feels like you need a couple of different tables, and the legend and prophecy table for like the specific ones you chose.
Yeah.
Should be, it's almost like legend and prophecy outcome tables.
Yes. That makes sense.
Then there can be sort of like intrinsic reasons for people to go explore, right? Like, and for the sake of hour and a half podcast that we're making right now, you know, we can come up with maybe a couple of prophecy ideas and legend ideas that are interesting and have like a D6 table, and then each of those has a D6 table or something. And maybe we don't write all of those right now, but
no, we definitely shouldn't.
Yeah, because that'll get, you know. But yeah, in a broader game of this, I could imagine it being something like Mythic Bastionland, where you have pages and pages and pages of those, because those, I think, would be a lot of like what drives people to go explore.
Easily, you're right, because the I love that idea of, yes, randomizing just like general world topography, land, things, but then having, yes, your list of things that correspond to the legends that your players know. Then suddenly, if they engage with that map, they're immediately going to have a place to go to or a place to want to see.
I've been messing around a lot with like hex tiles for some other games that I've been kicking around ideas for, and I think because of that, my brain very quickly goes to like, well, what if this game is, you have a blank stack of like dry erase hex tiles, and as you explore, you like lay out the hexes and mark what is on each of them, and then by the end you have a map of what you have explored. And then you could like give someone else your map, and they could lay it out and mark all of the stuff and explore your same layout if they wanted.
Right.
Yours would be unique as you explore. Or at least that would be like the intent of playing. Right. Would be that it's unique as you explore. And then there's like a physical sort of bit to it.
I love that. I wonder, oh man, I wonder if there's another thing that we can use, because as much as I love like dry erase hex tiles, that they're a very like niche item to have for sure. That, like, you know, certain nerds have. But I wonder if there's like another thing that we can, because I love having that like physical thing that we can use to like lay out bit by bit. I wonder if there's something else that we can, that like is modular enough that you can kind of do that.
It's probably like, just graph paper, right?
Is it? Yeah, you think
maybe not
just
graph
like,
paper, but like printed out hex template on paper or whatever, and then you can just write it on. Is probably the next best option. Now, and I haven't really thought about this at all. I've just been thinking about hex tiles a lot, so it's on my brain. I haven't really thought about if that's a good idea for the game, or if it has any
Right.
actual bearing of whether or not that would be a good thing or not. It just was in my head. So
Yeah, I've been working on, like, this reminds me, I've been working on a game with using like double 12 Mexican train style dominoes,
oh
and
yeah.
that translates into like, because that's more of like a dungeon delvey type of thing that translates into pathways.
Hmm.
But I wonder if there is something to be said about besides using like straight up hex tiles or printed out page things. I wonder if there's something to be said about using items, or even if it's just like different colored index cards that would imply something to create a map. I know that like index cards immediately lock you into rectangles and squares and kind of like square up everything, but I don't know. I'm just curious about playing around with like what are the tools that we use to make the physical map? Like, now we've kind of got this idea of story already. We've got this idea of generative world of using
Hmm.
tables to create these things. What does the physical element look like besides just like writing on a piece of paper
Yeah, yeah.
or using hex tiles?
And maybe the answer is that it should just be a full sheet of paper,
Hmm.
sort of like something like Before the Flood or some of the other games that do it,
Hmm.
where you do just draw out like an entire map as you go. And maybe that's more interesting. The struggle that I see with, and I guess maybe something we should talk about before we talk about what we're discussing now,
Yeah.
is the scale of what we want this to be.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because scale determines a lot here.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
if we're talking, trekking through forests and or the post-apocalyptic variant, if that's the vibe we're going with, then that's a very different scale than like trekking through a building or whatever. So
Totally. Oh, that's a really, really great question. Oh man, I see. Maybe this is just my desire to do something a little bit different. Most of the games that I think of when I think map making are something like like Mythic Bastionland or Hex
mhm.
Crawly, or are something where you have a massive world map that you draw and fill in the blanks, which I love, and it's a lot of fun. But I wonder, like, to your point, what would it look like if this game, if the scope of this is just a little bit, the scale is a little bit smaller, whether it's I mean, I guess if we say entering a building, then suddenly that idea of like you're coming out of your hole and into the world can be literally any place that you do not know what's inside.
Well, my my brain immediately jumps to heart, not because of anything mechanically other than just heart does all of its locations through point crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And now that might be stretching the idea of making a map a little bit thin,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
but that sort of thing could still work very well for the structure of like the whole legend and prophecy thing that we're talking about. Then each of your points is, well, and maybe this is actually a really interesting way to build a map, and you build your map post game. So you have a sheet of paper, you
Uh
start in
huh.
one place, and each time you roll, there's a like determinant somewhere in the roll of how long you should make your line to your next point crawl circle. And then you get like these branches going out everywhere.
Yeah.
And once you're
Oh,
done,
that's cool.
you circle it like what we were talking about, the rice or the rolling the dice on the paper. You could like circle it,
Whoa.
and then all of your points become points of interest on a map that you've just drawn out.
That I really love that idea.
Now, my brain immediately goes to like, now we give them the length of the thing and the angle that it should be at so that they can get like weird stuff that goes like backwards on itself and stuff like
Ooh.
that. But I don't know if any, that might just all be very boring. It's just what popped into my head. So,
Right. Yeah. 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 Ah, man, you're so right though. That there should be, if we are doing like straight up point crawl, and it is like here's the thing that's going to be, here's the point of interest that's going to be there, here's how far it is from point A to point B.
mhm.
There also should be some type of determinant for your cardinal direction, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense. So
yeah.
like how it appears on the page.
And maybe that's just, it's further on. Maybe it's a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, or
Uh huh.
whatever. Like
Uh-huh.
maybe these are just descriptive and we let people do whatever they want with that, and that's probably fine, honestly.
That's very OSR spirited, which I do appreciate as far
Yeah.
as like, yeah, I don't know, go
And then
go up to the right.
someone could roll the exact same stuff as the previous person and get a different looking map because they like chose to do their lines a little bit differently or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's something good about that, I think.
I think
But
so too. I think that there's something to maybe that is leaving the player engagement a little bit up to um, like if we're literally playing a game where we're passing a pen around as far as like drawing on your big piece of paper,
sure.
um, then like yeah, like let every person make their lines a little bit differently.
Well, and I don't think it should just be this game is you build a map and you pass a pen around. I actually think this should be a game about a group of adventurers going and doing this. Whether that's a
Oh, so
whether
it's
that's
like
a
in
one
media
shot
res.
game. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean I love games that are meant to be a one shot game. Like is
Hmm.
oh that's a fun way to look at this. Like you are like since we're drawing on a map and this kind of keys back into that like exploring versus searching for something. If you are literally the first person who's ever been here and your job is you're a cartographer
Hmm.
and your job is to draw from point A to point B.
And that's where all of the stuff that well, and my brain also is going to like exploration pre like globalization pre exploring the new world
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
a lot of themes like that we could go to as well. But even if we're still in like the Fallout or the underground home or whatever, those sort of ideas also have a lot of like room for you to be like, oh, we're sending you out to go figure out what the fuck is out there and go
Right.
do some exploring, and then you're gonna come back and give us a map, and then the gameplay becomes about that, and that could be a really fun way to like generate a world for a campaign you were going to play, or just a fun one shot that you get a map of out after. And I
I
fucking
love
love
that.
artifacts of play, so I'm
Yes, yes, that's kind of I've been exploring with artifacts of play a lot more. And a game this reminds me. I mean, like Microscope is one of my all-time favorite RPGs.
sure.
Because it can be used for so many different things. You can make a timeline in one session. You can make the same timeline and play it for 7 sessions. You can make this game. You can make this timeline and then immediately use that timeline for the history of your world that you
Hmm.
have in your whatever type of campaign.
So it sort of sounds to me like that is a bit of the direction where we're heading.
That's the one that's the most exciting to me is this idea. I really like how you this in media res idea where the game itself is explore a new world and by the end of it you have a I know I
It's
have
just very
for the
funny.
listeners I have my cats walking back and forth all over me because it's easier to do this than to try to lock them out.
It's just so funny that they're specifically always walking in front of the camera. Like,
The comedic timing is next level.
yeah,
I
it's
have
very
to
good.
say.
But yes, so it's like phase one is you pick your legends and prophecies, you create home. So whatever
Yes.
your first point in the crawl is,
Yes.
and that gives you like a cool space to be like, this is where we come from, this is who we are.
Yes.
Um, I was even thinking like you could have the core of this game be themed underground post-apocalyptic thing, like this is Silo and you're going out to see if the world's
Right.
better.
Yep. Hmm.
But you could also have I referenced Gurren Lagann and I totally could have just referenced Silo, which is I don't know, I guess that's probably a toss-up on what people know better.
Sure.
But anyway, then your second phase can be like your exploration or whatever, and that is like you make the next point and then you have like a couple of scenes or something on that point.
Ooh, yeah, that is really interesting. I think also having like a scene on that. Oh man, especially if we're going with this, like immediately my mind has now jumped to like old school. this is going to show how little I know. I'm going to say Magellan ass maps. That, but make me think of like these moments of, or like when you see like genuinely the here there be monsters things on a
Yeah.
map, where it's like you go and we're creating this thing, and it's like if you have an experience at this point, that is going to inform how that like we draw that point on a map.
Uh-huh.
That's really cool.
And depending on how we build this out, there could be I love on I you know, I think Colin, who's another member of Story Games Chicago, has really sort of cemented this in me with our first episode of the first season of Gamestorm. We talked a lot about unreliable narrators, and then I've thought more about it as games have come up. But that some of that conversation that I've had with him and further conversation with some other designers has really cemented a love in me for unreliable narrators in games.
I love that idea, and I think that's you're so right that plays into this. Like, whatever map that we have to return back to home is going to be based entirely off of our personal experience.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
also going,
and
yeah,
that mirrors the legends and or like the rumors
yes,
and legends and prophecies. Like
yes,
that's the same sort of thing, just down a step.
I love that. And it's like, yes, it kind of mirrors that. Like, here's my experience. Here's the things that I already think that I know going out into the world, and
Mhm.
then here's the thing that I personally experienced. And no matter what, that is going to show us. It's going to show up on the artifact of play.
Oh, you could play this game as a generational game, and the legends and prophecies could generate every time you play. Your actions could generate new legends and prophecies.
Oh, that's see that again. Once again, we're back to microscope. That reminds me of the there's a sidecar usually that you have that's like your resounding legends that kind of keep coming
Hmm.
back, or things that other players can like grab onto from 3 generations ago.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's like a nice way, because I think that's I love games that are engineered to be one-shot games but can build upon themselves. I think that's a really nice like sidecar thing to be like, hey, this like how are these legends going to perpetuate that you discovered off of this map?
I wonder, and you could even do something where the map isn't. This brings me back to thinking about like pre-industrial revolution, or not pre-industrial revolution, but like um, older cartography and older things like that, where exploration was not and mapping were not things that were necessarily completed in a single generation because they were such tall tasks.
Sure.
So this idea of like 3 generations of the town, and that's maybe really interesting. Of like, the problem is I see an immediate problem with it already, so maybe it's not actually that interesting. But the immediate problem that I see actually is that you have already played the previous map, so you know what legends and prophecies are real. Whereas the first time you play, it's all ambiguous. So that maybe
Sure.
creates.
Sure.
Although I guess that depends on how we make the tables and stuff, because there could be implications for further stuff that aren't resolved.
Yeah, it wasn't like it doesn't necessarily that kind of depends on like what the tables that correspond with the legends and prophecies look like, because if those tables have options to solve the legend, if that makes sense, then of course you can put a pin in that. But if they're all kind of open ended, at least to an extent, then it like if they leave the door open, then it does leave that room for mystery.
Well, and I'm even thinking like on event tables or something like that, we could have some things that could be hooks for greater mystery, but
Yeah.
are never really fully explained, because sometimes shit's just weird when you don't fully understand what's going on. And then it's like the Here There Be Dragons thing, where like you see on a map someone's written some shit that you're like, that's crazy, but it sort of ruins the mysteriousness of it a little bit when you were the
Sure.
one who also played through finding that thing,
Right.
and are
Yeah.
now
Uh-huh.
playing through a
Uh-huh.
character who's like, I don't know what this is. So I think maybe that is a little bit weird. It makes me think about the first season, first episode, the Telling Tales game. You were in the playtest we did of that, right? For story game at Playtest Chicago, where we did the game that had all of like the truths in the middle of the table, little like slips of paper.
No, you know what? I missed this one. Tell me
Okay,
more.
okay. Anyway, the game is about like passing history on. So you play a session and you use a bunch of like little slips of paper and notes to build your narrative of your world and your story, and then you use the notes you wrote in the game to pass on more narrative and story into the pile in the middle. So the pile in the middle always is like growing and changing, and there's a whole little token and bidding system.
Yes. Oh my goodness. No, I'm so I. Yes, we did this.
I was thinking that was you.
Yes,
we
you're
had
right,
that volcano at the end that
yes,
I think I got thrown
massive.
into.
Oh my God, that's exactly it. Yes. Holy cow. Yes. That is.
But yeah, and that kind of comes to my mind, that idea of like you might not always have the same people playing. But specifically if you're turning like past events into future legends, it's almost better to not have the same people playing.
My mind went immediately to this is how silly my mind is like, oh man, is there part of the game or part of the, like, if this game goes up, is there a database or a place like that people can mail their maps to? Like, can we start like an epistolary network
I've had
people?
So many thoughts like this.
Oh man,
the synthetic archaeology game we talked about, we were like, oh, we should make a website where people can publish their findings.
Yeah, there's
it
reminds me of like one of my favorite parts of the indie game. I think it's Void 1680 AM, where it's like a playlist playing game. But is that the creator actually has like will if you send in your recording of your playthrough, they will broadcast it on their like AM station or on their local. I think they have a YouTube radio or like a internet radio channel, whatever it is. Like That's
very cool. I knew he did something like that, but I didn't realize it was actually people's recordings. That's very cool.
They are like actually like sent in. All right, here's my finished MP4 file. Have at like just play it. And so like I kind of love that idea, and that was like one of my selling points of that game. And I know that this is like totally meta to think about from a gaming standpoint, but it's a really fun thought to think about, like coming up with possibilities of like passing on, emailing your stuff. I would love to make it like a physical, like actually mail it. Then you have to get people's addresses and such, but which is weird.
Yeah.
But if you could, man, that rocks.
Well, and that's where like I was thinking too, like you write down the new legends and prophecies, and you make like quick little roll tables for each of them.
Yeah, right.
Like based on what the previous stuff was.
Right.
And then you even just hand it to a different play group, right? Like,
yeah.
And then they play through the lens of like, okay, we've already mapped this area. Now we're starting from here after we've like traveled up to where they left off from, and going off into the world or whatever.
That's really
or maybe they remap the same thing and they get a different map because cartography is hard.
Cartography sucks, man.
Yeah. Especially when you don't have like modern, very complicated tools. So anyway, those are a lot of thoughts. I think a lot of those we should probably put aside because they're very big thoughts.
Yes, I know. Yes, that sounds like a great idea.
Okay, so thinking a bit about the core structure. So we have the sort of create home bit. I always love the like decide a few truths of the place.
Yes.
So maybe it is just each player decides a truth of the place you're from or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to like frame that so we can. But man, maybe there is. Maybe it is just best to be like speak a truth out loud. I love like having some bit of prompt, just especially if we're to help players who have a tough time just kind of coming up with things off the dome.
It's probably good to have something about the place that isn't just make a truth before you get to that.
Yes.
Like even if it's just we could state a truth or two or something like that. So maybe you're from an isolated community. Man, really been in the sort of all these like dialect style of games where it's like, okay, you're from an isolated enclave. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that is potentially a good way to do that, because I think you're right. Like, just having it be super open-ended can be tough for some players.
What if it could just be as simple as state like 2 or 3 truths about where you're from, and then we have a couple of prompt questions.
Sure.
But with the pure idea of like, please state a truth that whatever comes to your mind is perfect, and it can be literally anything that you want it to be. But if you need some guidance,
Sure. Yeah.
here's some questions.
So truly just prompts to assist with
Yeah,
your
I think so.
truths.
I think that like we're getting we're my mind is goes into the possibility of like drawing cards or something to like tell us truths about the world, but I think that we are gonna get that with so much of that with the actually rolling for like the map and like rolling for encounter and that type of thing, that
Uh-huh.
I would love kind of having a totally pure openness that we can
Yeah.
get to, or at least to start.
No, I totally agree. Do you have any thoughts on prompts? I know we've talked about a bunch of different types of themes. Is
hmm
there anything
I
that you're
think
landing on?
I think that like to get to prompt question here, we should think about a little bit about like theme, and if we have one, because that really informs
Hmm.
like if we're actually in the silo, if it
Sure. Yeah.
and that type of thing. So like yeah, I guess like because the questions immediately that are like where does your food come from?
Mm-hmm.
And like the pure questions of like how do you survive, but like I also love that like um thinking more of like the leading questions a la for the queen, where it's like you you hate your day job, what is it?
Yeah. Well, and I
Here.
do think we should have probably separate like character questions, right? Like, and
Yes.
maybe that's just archetypes. Maybe that
hmm
doesn't need to be like a full character class or
no no
something.
no 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 no
But building archetypes, I think, is important for structuring how people decide to like role play or whatever.
100%. So like, yeah, so we're looking a little bit more macro here, like pure world
Yeah, yeah,
then.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like a single truth that's like you reside in a thing underground, if that's the
hmm
direction we're going, or you reside in a tiny enclave town where the harsh brambles have restricted you from ever the people from ever going out.
Yes.
Whatever. I don't have a super.
No, we don't need, but we need. So it needs to have like that statement of here's where you are,
Yeah.
and then the next truth needs to be here's why you're exploring.
Well, and I think that could even just be a separate prompt, maybe. Like, and
You
maybe
think
that's a
so?
character thing, because I don't think the whole party, especially this kind of goes back to the exploration versus searching thing,
hmm
but which again we don't have to go too deep on. But uh, I don't think every player needs to be going out for the same reason. Like some characters could be like, "Oh, I'm going out because my nana told me a rumor about a thing that is like can give everlasting life or whatever, like a real fountain of youth type thing."
Right. Uh huh.
Someone else could be like, "I am craving adventure and I want to get out of this sleepy town." And
Gotcha.
someone else could be like, that sort of like divided but aligned on what they need to do in order to do their things kind of
hmm
idea. Because, the character who's interested in the Fountain of Youth or whatever, they don't know where it is. So they need to go out and start mapping things if they're going to have any chance of finding it, right?
100%. I guess my when I think about that statement, it's less because I agree. Like each character, like to have archetype, needs to have that like to have that objective that they need. I wonder if there's something about like, because my question then becomes, why has nobody mapped this out before? Like why have you never
Mm.
left?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying
Yeah.
less of like why is a single person why are they motivated,
Yeah.
more
Right.
of
Sorry.
why is it possible now?
Exactly. That's a better way of saying what I said. Because yes, there needs to be a here's where you're from or here's where you are and why is leaving possible.
Yes, yeah.
And then we can go into why are you leaving in particular. But there does I think those two. So to start off, like we need those two true statements of here's where you are,
And
here's why leaving is now suddenly possible.
here's what changed.
Here's what changed. Yes.
My brain's pretty stuck on the underground city thing.
Let's play with it.
Okay, cool. So you reside in an underground town, city, village. The dirt and rock is all you know.
Yeah. Listen, that's tasty flavor right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It tastes gritty, but it's there.
And I mean, maybe it's as simple as like someone found an exit.
Yeah, because my mind is like, I immediately went to like suddenly like the door has thawed or like the rocks have shifted. Um,
Or there's a giant
thawing.
earthquake and a mech falls through the
Yes.
ceiling, which is
Right.
how Gurren Lagann starts.
Oh,
Spoilers.
really?
Yeah.
But yeah, something to that effect. Like there's if we are going with underground, then yeah, there was a seismic shift, and suddenly in a portal, not but a an escape or a route, a door has opened that wasn't there before.
So after a small earthquake or after a small shake or some, there's probably some thematic fun thing that you could start calling all the things since everyone lives underground. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
someone's found a door that leads to the surface. And then each player decides the truth about the place you were from. So then you get, 2 to 4 kind of truths.
Yep.
We can come up with prompts later, I think, for that.
I think so. I think so too. But I think that that's the next phase is discovering truths about the world that you're from, and then the next phase needs to be who are you.
Yeah. What are good archetypes for an underground town? Oh, I really love like the scholar archetype, someone who's like really in the books or whatever their version is,
Yeah.
who's like there's got to be something other than this or something like that. And everyone else is like, this is all there is. What are you talking about?
I love that. I love that. There's got to be the scholar person is really great. My mind just from being underground is like I immediately think like minor 49er. I'm thinking like somebody who's very like wealth um and treasure and wealth can look different, but like somebody who's like very finding things focused.
Sure. So they're like the wealthy scavenger.
Yeah, yes, like a wealthy scavenger is a really fun type of archetype to play with. It reminds me of things makes me think of like a tinkerer type of uh, sale, but like somebody who comes back who would in the day to day of their town would come back with the things that they discovered and sell it all.
Yeah, yeah. I I added to the scholar of the heavens. And these are starting to feel a little bit more like playbooks in terms of like the specificity,
Yeah,
which isn't
right.
necessarily a problem. Maybe,
Listen, man, I don't mind it. That totally. I mean, that solves our theme problem right there.
yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. Wealthy scavenger. Now,
I again and now like my question about like where does your food come from immediately like makes me think of like what's a farmer look like? What is a somebody who needs to figure out if scholar is a little bit heady, I think somebody who's in charge of or maybe this is like civil engineer or something to that effect, like somebody
I'm trying to think of a fun name for that.
right, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My brain went to like dirt mover immediately, but that sounds more like a construction worker. And like sculptor, but that doesn't quite work. Dirt engineer?
Uh, maybe it's maybe it's like hi. It's like Stone Engineer. It's Stone Street. It's something to that effect.
I almost put like sculptor because
I'm
there's
looking
maybe
like
something
yes.
interesting there. But that's also a little bit tough because that doesn't really give engineer vibes.
Right.
Oh, street sculptor?
Yeah, I was gonna say like Civic Sculptor.
Ooh, civic sculptor is very funny. And you could take that in a lot of different ways.
You could take that in a lot of different ways.
Keeping with the Gurren Lagann vibe, I feel like we have to have a criminal character. Not that I know that you haven't seen Gurren Lagann, but one of the main characters is like the bad boy of the town who's always getting in trouble. And I don't.
Maybe yeah, like something that's just simple like vagabond or something that's like you because like whether you're a criminal or whether you just like you're on this mission because you want to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, yeah. And truly that is more of his character than criminal is vagabond,
Sure.
who's just like
Yeah.
there is something else we need to get out of here. He kind of takes the scholar of the heavens and criminal and mashes them together. More like adolescent douchebag or whatever, I guess, less of
Sure.
criminal, which, that's very anime. Scholar of the Heavens, Wealthy Scavenger, Civic Sculptor, Vagabond. I'm trying to think if there's any other like big things that come to mind in terms of stuff that you'd want to cover. I liked what you were saying about what does someone who farms looks like, but the only thing that I'm struggling with that is how to say it without saying too much about the world in a way that makes it so that there's less room for the players to decide.
Right.
Because like Civic Sculptor, that's not crazy. Like the idea that they probably like sculpt some stuff out of the dirt and stone.
Yeah.
But if you're like mushroom farmer, then that's like a pretty implicit like this is how they get their food.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like this sounds too clinical, but like sustenance server, like sustenance, like
I was just thinking like nutrient scrubber.
yeah, that's oh man. I mean, scrubber is such a evocative, but like yeah, we're trying to ride that line of like not too prescriptive, but just enough to give you like a direction of flavor, right?
Yeah, and
Like
nutrient scrubber feels like weird and gross enough that like
yeah,
it is maybe something that might direct you in some ways, but not in a way that feels overly prescriptive.
100%. You could be a nutrient scrubber and to go full Magic the Gathering nerd here, you can be a nutrient scrubber and be full Golgari for your Ravnica,
Yeah,
or you
yeah.
could be a nutrient scrubber and it's like more of a Simic type of like bioengineering
For
thing.
those of you who don't play Magic,
Sorry.
Golgari is like mushrooms and underground and disgusting moss and spores. And you said Simic for the other one?
I said Simic, yeah.
Yes, Simic would be like bioengineering and like fancy, weird, fucked up.
In like back to tanks.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
To
yeah.
go Star Wars
Um,
now, but like yes, it's full. It's a little bit more sci-fi. And
You're like,
and,
if you don't have at least one of these nerd touch points, I can't help you.
what are you doing? What are you doing? Listen to the game podcast.
yeah. It's just very funny to be like, let me explain this one nerd touch point with another
Right, with
nerd
another
touch.
nerd touch point.
Yeah. Okay, I think 5 is enough for now. We can always come up with
At
more
least to
later.
start. Yeah, listen, we'll add 3 more with the expansion.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. The full release post Ashcan or whatever.
That's right. That's right.
And I think each of these should have a prompt, but I don't really want to write them right now. Just so
No,
we
we
can get
shouldn't.
to the rest.
Yeah, let's not do that right now. But I agree. This is where each should have a prompt about like what they do, and then but then we need to have a prompt about like who are you in this
Mhm.
role type of deal.
Honestly, it sort of feels like you could maybe move the like determining things about the city or whatever
Hmm.
into the characters and have each character have like one or two prompts about their character and then one prompt that is just like decide a truth about the town.
That's nice, and then that kind of, I mean, that means that their prompt can be anything, but as soon as you know a little bit more about your role, it makes these players want to like, I'm going to decide where the food comes from if I'm the nutrient scrubber. I want to
Yes.
I'm going to decide how crappy law enforcement is in this area if I'm the vagabond.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking too is like it does sort of feel like you want people who are the like archetype to have ownership over their like section of
Of the
stuff.
world, yeah.
And that allows you to kind of segment that a little bit
Agreed.
without having to be super explicit saying like the nutrient scrubber gets to say what food does.
Yeah, right.
And maybe you could even have a prompt that's like, hey nutrient scrubber, what does your job look like? Like what does it look like when you scrub nutrients?
When you wait, what does it look like when you scrub nutrient?
Oh, that's so weird.
Hey, I'm gonna call people a nutrient scrub from now.
Someone who's just not you're get really into protein, and then anyone who's not getting
Yeah.
enough protein, you're like, you nutrient
Nutrient
scrub.
scrub.
Uh,
I'm a biohacker now, is what I'm saying.
oh yeah.
Yeah, you nutrient scrub.
That does sound like something that like a character in Cyberpunk would call someone.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we got a bunch of nutrient scrubs on this street over here.
Terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think the phase after that, and then it's just kind of like a back and forth, or maybe it's like 2 phases in the exploration phase. I don't know. But the exploration phase is just find the next point. So that's creating the point and placing it on your map, drawing it on your map, and then playing out some scenes in that point.
When do we? And I think before we leave, we need to figure out the myths and legends type of, or the legends and thing. Like where does that go?
Oh, that's a good point, because I think after character creation, you might want to have like, maybe each player picks a prophecy and legend from the table, and sometimes those might overlap, sometimes not. And maybe you could even not pick one, but if you don't pick one, you have to have another interesting, like an interesting reason why you didn't pick one. So like if a player is like, oh, I don't believe in any of that, my character is like the opposite of superstitious, they think all of that is like nonsense. And as long as you build some reason for your character wanting to go explore, like maybe it's the scholar of the heavens, and their goal is to prove that all of the prophecies and legends are actually not true.
Sure, but I mean that also means that like they've at least heard a prophecy. Like that is something that's like you can choose not to believe it, especially if in our like whatever tables we come up with under each prophecy and legend leaves room for ambiguity. Like, I mean, you don't have to do anything, but like I feel like you can make that decision for your character, but you've at least heard this legend, you've at least heard this rumor.
I like that framing way better than what I was thinking. The idea that like instead of picking the legends that people believe in, that can be something they just like decide over time. But the framing is more what you were just saying. What are the like 2 to 3 legends that the town has, that the village knows of?
That's kind of my like what I was thinking more about it. It's like, and that will inform later on like how true that is in the world. I don't know. That will be left up to the table. That'll be left up to exploration, and like the scenes that happen within. But the prophecies and the legends are something that the whole town has learned. And to that end, I think that like we don't even necessarily, depending on like how big we make the tables for each prophecy and legend, it could literally be like, okay, cool. Here's our here's the 4 players who are playing this game. Here's our characters. We only have 2 of them because like these are the 2 rumors. You know, as much as I would love to say everybody's roll 1 on the table, but like it opens it up to, if you want the game to like, if you want the town to have only heard 1 rumor about the world outside, cool. That means your whole game is about, or this whole exploration is about like seeing if that rumor is true or not.
Yeah. Well, and I like the framing that seeing if the rumor or the legends and prophecies are true is sort of a secondary thing.
Yes.
And that can be a character's individual driving goal, like what we were talking about earlier. But it's secondary to the idea of like, we just found a door to the surface. Right. That's crazy. Right. Like,
I think like first and foremost, it is get out and what is this world? But also, I've heard a couple rumors, and now I want to, and like maybe I want to describe it, or I want to follow it, because I'm the scholar of the heavens, and I want to disprove it, or I want to follow it because I'm the vagabond, and this rumor has to do with, or like I'm the wealth, like I'm the wealth tinkerer, and one of the rumors is about like a city of gold.
Yeah. Okay, so I wrote, the village has asked for volunteers to go make a map of the surface. All of you have agreed. And then 6, I was thinking just a D6 table, because then we can just come up with like some simple legends and prophecies right now, or even skip it right now if we want and come back to like deciding those later.
I think actually, like, as much as I think that this is the point in the game process where it should go, but let's come up with actually coming up, like, let's do that later
and figure out like what his scenes look like and stuff. I just wrote roll 3 times on the D6 table to determine the legends the village keeps in their collective consciousness. Because that's like, then you could, like you were saying, end up with only 1 if you roll the same number all 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Or more likely, you're going to have 2 or 3, which is kind of the number that I think is perfect.
I agree.
And then find the next point. So I have legend and prophecy outcome tables. So that would be maybe a D6 table for each one or something like that. I don't know.
I agree. Something to that effect sounds right.
Yeah. And then topography tables. So my brain immediately goes for all of this, especially since we're using D6s already, to just say like, this will be a D66 table. So there's like a bunch of options.
Yeah, sure.
But it'll be a bunch of options that people can hit, and it doesn't have the same statistic issues as doing like a D12 table or 2D6 table. I mean,
right.
So a D66 table of like land and stuff, also something that we can come up with later. And then event tables, that this is mostly a question of like, what are these? Like, what do we want events to be in this game? Is this like, do we want combat to happen in this game, or should that? And if we do, is that all just a narrative beat, right?
That's my inclination right off the bat. Like I don't see any. I don't really necessarily see a world in which these players, these characters, like have a possibility of dying, and I
Yeah.
don't think like without if we're gonna role play combat, like there needs to be a possibility of like being maimed or actually dying,
Mhm.
because that otherwise the combat's pointless if
Sure.
that
Yeah.
possibility doesn't exist. So like I think that any type of event that happens, whether it be a conflict of some sort, should be resolved narratively, or should be like simply resolved with a again like a d6 roll, just be like what's the good outcome, what's the bad outcome, what's the or something to that effect where it can be resolved with story.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the classic like 2d6 and you get like a +1 if it's in your archetype's wheelhouse. And that can be sort of open-ended for resolving something when it
Right,
comes up
sure, sure,
or
sure,
like
sure, sure.
acting to do something. And honestly, you could even extend that to combat, and rather than having it be something where you die, it could be something that like forces you to go back or something like that.
Mm.
Um, because I don't really think there's any drama in someone dying in a game like this.
No, I
Because,
don't think so either.
and maybe there's no drama in being forced to go back if the game is about exploration. But that does create a thing of like, if you come upon a dangerous situation, you're not inclined to engage with it and do like whatever narratively. You're inclined to like, I'm thinking of like skirting the clearing because you found some like what looked to be wild animals that could be dangerous or something like that.
Right, right.
That maybe creates a narrative incentive to take actions that I think are more in line with what we're thinking about. But I don't
I
know. Maybe
agree.
that's not true.
I I guess like my I we need to think about the artifact of play here, and so all events need to be something that can be drawn or need to like lead to something that can go on a page, whether or not your outcome is good or bad. Like I guess like that's just something that has come to my mind. Like I love the imagery that you just had of like we came across a crevasse that has a bunch of wildlife in it,
Hmm.
um, because mostly the crevasse is there and it's drawable and it's put on a mappable, and then depending on outcome that can inform how like it actually shows up, like if there's a giant kraken, a land kraken on in that crevasse
Well,
or something like that.
and like not only that, but even if it is just something as simple as we found dangerous wild animals, I think that does those things can create like, oh, we're gonna draw an animal here, and then you get the
Yes,
fucked up weird dragon drawings on
yes,
maps that are like, or you're looking out down over a beach from a cliffside and you see all these weird fucked up animals on the beach, and you're like, not going down there, just gonna mark it on the map and we're gonna
yep,
carry on. But those
yeah,
create like scenes of moments of your characters having to make choices or whatever. And obviously I think these are the way that I'm framing these right now are you're maybe a little too like removed from it. And I think it's maybe more interesting from a narrative perspective if there's the events put you a little bit more like in it. So maybe even some of this stuff that's not putting you in it is more topography focused. Like you could say like the crevasse or like the nesting grounds of some animal could be listed in there. But things that are like, oh, I just thought I also really love the idea of none of the animals having names, just descriptions,
yeah. Oh,
because you
that's
don't.
that's you don't know how they are.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, and that's a
Hmm.
very fun idea. But and then the events being something where it's like a stampede of some animal runs across your group, and you have to like do something to get out of it or whatever. And those are situations where like failure might not mean injury, but it might mean like something bad happens in the narrative or whatever. Your situation gets more complex. As I'm talking about this, I'm like, do we even need a dice roll?
Right, yeah. uh,
So I
yeah,
don't know.
realistically, if the game is about like exploration and map, like I don't even know if we if it's more of just like here's a event prompt and a question, because if
Mm-hmm.
again like the way you brought up like combat, like death doesn't have any dramatic thing here. I think, I mean, if we come up on an outcome where it's like you need to go back, that's the end of the game,
Yeah.
right? So like that can't really be a possibility either. So realistically, it always just has to be a question of like how do you get away from this? How do you succeed? How do you overcome?
Yeah, and maybe that means that I do like an event and a question, and I kind of like the idea of sometimes if an event relates, specifying the question, like having a sub question that makes it specific for an archetype, or something like that, because then you could be like, because the one thing that an event and a question doesn't have is it doesn't have any way that like there's no like mechanical incentive for an archetype to engage with something ever outside of someone just being like, oh, I'm the scholar of the heavens, this might be something that I could do.
Outside of like a really good role player.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Right.
So it might be fun to have like, oh, this event is you find some ruins with old text, and then it has a question, a generic question, and then a specific scholar of the heavens question in case you have them in your like group or whatever.
Yeah,
that's kind of fun.
I love that. I think that that's really cool. I think that especially, I don't think that every event in question has to have a sub question for every archetype, but I think that like you can probably fit one or two reasons for like, or one or two archetypes in each event. I would assume.
Well, and I was even thinking some might not have any, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
But you know, when there's a case where something like really fits one of the archetypes, it's like, oh, let's just like throw this in here. You see like other humans that are scavengers that look kind of sketchy. It's like a specific vagabond question of like, how do you like try to immediately fit in with them or something. I really like that. Just for the way that helps drive something and build a little bit of a narrative, but it doesn't pull too much away from the map stuff, which I think a dice mechanic, the more we were talking about it, the more I was like, I think that pulls too much away from the map stuff.
Yeah, you're right. That it becomes a fun role playing game, which I always love. But like because now I'm even thinking about like, okay, cool, we've got these events and we've got these zoom in moments on a map, but we do need to start thinking about like, how do we actually make the point crawl? How does that physically represent on our piece of paper?
Yeah. Okay. So to that end, and I guess really the scenes in the map are more of just engaging with the event. They're not like you wouldn't necessarily do a scene if you didn't have an event, right?
Right, 100%. Those events, those types of things are zoom in moments, right? They're really fun role play zoom in moments. But the game itself and the artifact of play is very much a macro level from a bird's eye view, a zoom out. And I think that the zoom in moments are necessary to make a fun game, and I'm for a role play focused type of thing, absolutely. But we do need to figure out. I think it has to be like the macro first, as far as like where do we go? How do we get to this point on the map? What is that? How does that manifest on our piece of paper? And then we can zoom in once we're at the point.
Yeah. Okay, so drawing points. I'm trying to think about what the procedures would be with this, because really it's just like circle a point. I guess it's really roll legend and prophecy, roll topography, roll events, and then I think the most fun thing is to draw what that point looks like based on those three tables.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so make a small sketch of what the POI looks like based on the three rolls. Procedurally, though, like what we were talking about earlier of like deciding where the next POI goes, that's a much harder thing to codify in my brain of like,
how do you as far as like a point crawl and like so let's just take what we know, like how does Heart handle that?
Well, Heart doesn't really care about where stuff goes.
Okay.
So I can't think of a POI of a like point of interest, point crawl, depth crawly kind of game that cares about where your points go. So it's mostly just draw them wherever, and that's just how you visualize it.
Yeah, but like I want to do that because we're making a map.
Yeah.
Oh man, is there? I mean, immediately like my mind goes to like, we have the D6, like what do we have in our arsenal? We have a D6. We have the writing utensils. Because we could physically use like writing utensils as like across a page as kind of as a way of doing something. What else can we implement? We could obviously, using that D6, we can roll. Go on.
Finger lengths. Like not full finger lengths, but I'm thinking like to the knuckles.
Right.
As like distance measurements. So I'm trying to think of things that are not obtrusive, like to have or whatever.
Agreed. I think that with we're making a game right now where the D6 is the only thing that and your writing utensil, like your drawing utensil, is the only thing you need to have.
Yeah.
So like totally, like I have finger knuckles.
Yeah. So we'll have a like a D6 table that's like number of knuckle lengths from the previous line.
Oh man, that is actually really really fun.
I don't know that I've ever seen a game do that, but I'm sure some do.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because it doesn't. The interesting thing with that is it doesn't measure consistently because everyone has different length fingers.
Yeah.
But it gives you a consistent frame of reference at least.
Yes. Yes, from knuckle to 1 to 2 to the tip. That's pretty fun. And on a D6 and on like the D6 page or on the D6, it's just like number of knuckles. So it's like you have 1, 2, 3, and then if you end up rolling 6, you just go back and start 1, 2, 3, and then boom, that's it. Like the max length you can have from one point to another is 2 finger lengths, baby.
Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking. Well, 2 finger lengths is huge too. So maybe we do a D3 and it's 1, 2, or 3, and then it's just
I guess right because
1, 2,
well
2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I have short fingers, so it's not crazy to me, but like,
Sorry. That's fair. That's fair. But I'm just thinking,
okay.
like, how long is the average finger? Like, what, 3.5 inches or something? 3 inches? Maybe less?
Man. What? Don't put me on the spot like this, man.
But anyway, all I'm saying is that if a piece of paper is 8.5 by 11, you're gonna get all the way across that 8.5 by 11 by like 2 finger lengths.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think that that's actually more correct. Is like just a D3.
So and maybe you do a D6 and it's 1, 2, 3 for a single, 4, 5 for 2, and 6 for 3.
That's great.
Then we really reduce. So then we have one additional table, which is distance. And that's just 1 through 3 is 1 knuckle. Needs so much more explanation, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is for now.
Yeah. That part in the game we'll have to explain or put a diagram quickly of how to measure your knuckle.
So it's draw a line. Oh, and I guess it's distance and direction tables.
That was my next question is like how do we want to handle direction on the page as well?
Okay, so I wrote at the very top of exploration, take a blank piece of paper and draw a compass in a corner.
Yeah.
So that there's a north, east, southwest kind of place to anchor yourself.
Yep.
So it's pretty easy from there to just be like a D6 table for direction. And if you draw, I'm thinking if you draw the town somewhere in the south,
mm-hmm.
then we can anchor everything around mostly going north.
Yeah, I mean that makes rough sense to me. Yeah. If everything kind of mostly goes north, it probably makes the most sense on the page. I was thinking about like what does it look like if town is at the center, but
I did think about that too, but it gets a lot more complicated.
Right, because you'll run out of page pretty quick.
Okay, so I just have a D6 table with north, northeast, east, northwest, west, and I don't really know what to do for the 6.
You choose.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Because I was trying to think like what's something that could allow people to backtrack, and you choose is a great option that can allow people to backtrack. So then you get 1, 2, or 3 knuckles. That is north, northeast, east, northwest, west. You choose, and so that gives you like all of your direction and your distance.
Yep.
So
to
ahead.
zoom out even more, does then. Because I don't think that we're even like now we're talking about like a map that is like just pure experience based and like kind of and we're not necessarily even going to have like the boundaries of the world or like the boundaries of the continent so to speak on the map. So that makes it so the physical parameters of your page are the physical parameters of where your players can go,
And you
right?
could add another page on, right? Like,
Totally.
the something else I was thinking that might help root this a little bit is to say that to start your town and say that just south of your town when you come up from the ground is like the ocean or something.
Right, yeah. I think that that's a really great, like, if we're gonna root that, and it just kind of makes it like that's the edge of the world, so to speak, edge of the continent, edge of whatever we can get to at the moment, and that unless something really comes up wild in your event role, there is not going to be a way where you find like the edge of your continent or the edge of your thing.
And I think there's maybe something interesting in like topography tables about saying
Yeah.
like, oh, there's mountains over here. You maybe can't cross those.
Yes, I agree.
And maybe that means that this is the furthest point on the map you can go in this direction or whatever.
This it immediately reminds me of like I guess like now older open world games. Like it reminds me of Skyrim, where like for a fact that for a fact that there are other places, and if you know your Elder Scrolls lore, that are south of you. But in this game, you're not going to get to them because they're not going to be important because there's massive mountains or something.
Thinking of Mythic Bastionland again, in the base realm that they give you, you can also create your own realm. But in the base one that is like available, it's like mostly hewed in by mountains, and like that's just such an easy way of saying like, you are here, don't worry about the other places right now.
Yeah, I think
So,
that that's great. I think I love that, and that kind of like also lowers our scope of like we're not having people go out and like explore an entire continent here. We are just having them explore the area that is around their home, and that's really cool. And I think that you're right. Like something on a topography thing where it's like impassable mountains, marshland that is uncrossable without that type of thing.
I mean, that gets us like, I think 90% of the way there.
Right. I think so too.
So, and before I had said like scenes in the map is our phase 3, but I think that's basically just covered in what I wrote for events, because I wrote has an event in question, can have a sub question for specific archetypes, frame a scene around what is happening and how you answer the question. So that's pretty much all that you need for that roleplay element there. And then each point of interest has its sort of like scene. The only thing I can think of for phase 3 is like drawing your map.
Yeah. But I also think that, I mean, oh man, yeah, that is it, because it's going to be so tough to not want to like draw your thing that just happened once you finish the scene, and then move on. And like, is it rather that like you do phase 2 and then go to phase 3 and then you jump back to phase 2 for each point? Does that make sense?
Oh, when I say draw your map, I was thinking like putting it all together into one big map. Because like so I wrote in phase 2 that you draw your points as you go.
Yep.
So you'd have your sketches of like, here's my mountains,
right,
or here's my
right.
dragons. But then phase 3 is like, okay, we've gone as far as we can, or we, have run into something that is turning us back. And maybe there's like an event on the event table that is like, you have to turn back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now my brain's getting depth crawly here, but
Okay.
so I was just thinking about like, what does it mean to have to go back in a game like this? Or how does a game like this end? Is it just you play until you're done having fun or whatever? And my brain jumped to sort of depth crawl rules of like, for every point you go to, you like add one to the event table or something like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking like there are ways in tables where you have like a further cumulative chance of the more places the more points that you go to, the more events that happen. There are ways to add like cumulative chance of like, okay, now you need to go home.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that would, having it be something where like you can't be forced to go home until after your like fourth or fifth point.
Yep.
But by that time, it starts to become a random chance of ending. That seems like probably a good range for a game like this.
I think so too. I think you 100%, because like, man, you give me a game like this that you can play in like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that feels right. It reminds me actually just like this cumulative. It reminds me of the the playtesting that Diablo like that you're working on, and like how the cumulative loot tables kind of as you level up and move from room to room. I think that
Yeah.
there's a way that we can do that pretty easily with this.
I wonder if that means that shouldn't be a D66 table, because that's kind of hard to do on a D66 table. Although I guess you could just add one to one of the D6s.
Sure.
Oh, you know what's interesting? With
What's
a D66 table, if you add one to the the first column of sixes, you now add a whole extra D6 table of options.
Oh.
So
yeah.
So every single time you add one to the first set, you're going to be now doing a D76 table, except you're not ever going to be able to hit the ones.
You're never going to be at the ones again.
And so you could make like 10, you could make like basically a D10-6 table.
Mm-hmm.
But then not still have people roll a D66, and then as they move, add to the left-hand side.
Yep.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And that's the way. Oh man, that adds like so many options to what could be encountered, and then is also your way of like, okay, cool, you're going to go home at a certain point.
Yeah.
Oh, I like weariness is kind of your. I was thinking like rations or something run out, but I think that gets a little too nitpicky. I think I like weariness a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking that like rations and stuff like that is so mechanical.
Yeah.
And it feels like in this game we want something that is less mechanical. It's more about like you miss home, you're tired, so, and I love the idea that like that means maybe we'd have like a D26 table or whatever.
Holy shit.
Because, and maybe it's a little less than that, because maybe by the time you get to like the 15th or whatever, it's just they're all go home.
They're all right, sure.
And at some point you're always hitting that table. But that does kind of cap, how far you can go in a single journey, which is also maybe interesting. But then it's truly this sort of thing where you can have the early encounters like shift and engage into like later and later,
yes,
more interesting stuff.
I think so. I think that's really, really fun too, because as it moves on, like the earliest encounters can be simple topographical findings and simple, really, you find a really cool tree type of deal. But as they continue on, there can be more, there can be more depth to and that's where we can start seeing the questions and things that have maybe even lead into that myth and legend stuff.
I also really like the idea that as the encounter like table shifts, you could also have like events that shift away from the coast thematically, because
yes,
you're starting on the coast,
right?
So having you could have some stuff early on that sort of like ties into that, and then you could have it sort of shift away
as you move. Yep, 100%. And I do really like this kind of idea, like as we can have these events and things that shift away as you move topographically. I also like the idea of like, and this might lean into that like Mythic Bastionland thing of where it's like also the further away you get from home, because theoretically you're always going to be rolling direction, like you're going to be like the deeper travel you get away from home, the more likely you are going to be able to find things that are myth worthy, are legend worthy. Like I think like as you continue on, as you continue further away from home, the deeper the mystery gets, or the deeper the like kind of fantastical elements of this land can get.
I also wonder, and I don't know what the trigger for this would be, but I wonder if legend and prophecy outcome tables shouldn't be rolled on every point, if they should have a trigger.
I actually think that's kind of where my mind is going, is that rather the outcomes of your legends and whatever legends and prophecies are rolled when we create the world, right, or in phase 1, perhaps the corresponding like event table or the corresponding things that happen with those, the topographical tables, don't start rolling in until you get to the like 30 something, like until you're adding at least +3 on the like the topographical table, if that makes sense, or the event table.
Yeah. And I also, I hadn't been thinking about it this way, but as you were talking, I was like, oh, adding it to both the topography and the events means that now you have a massive table that is very dynamic, because as you get further in, you can't hit the old stuff anymore. But you have this big range every time that's slowly shifting of the stuff you can hit.
Slowly shifting, and that slow shift is kind of indicative of like the world that they are seeing is slowly shifting, and not only are these things perhaps happening in the world, also the way that the physical things they encounter will lean more and more into the weird potentially.
You know what I love too? That means that your D16, like one, if your first number is 1 and you're hitting like 1 through 6 or whatever on your second one, whatever it is, and you don't have any weariness, so this is your first point of interest, that's the only time you can hit that ones table.
Yes.
Which means that those can be kind of wacky and off the wall, because that means you have a 1 in 6 chance of even hitting that table, and then you'll never hit it again.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's weird.
So, like, from a dice math perspective, you can create some really interesting narrative stuff of, like, what is this weird fucked up shit that's right next to where we came out?
Yeah.
And then everything else is normal around here? Like, what is going on?
Oh, man.
And that creates really cool, like, world stuff. And you could also potentially tie something in that first table to the prophecy and legend rolls, because they're much less likely to hit it ever.
Yep.
Than if, on subsequent rolls when you start to have it more and more. And then there's a chance that people hit that prophecy and legend outcome like right away and start to see some stuff from that immediately, which I think is super interesting.
That feels like a really fun like drip feed of this, like where it's like you get that really cool hit of Strange World, and then it makes it okay that like the next thing that you find is just like like birds on the cliff.
Yeah, I wrote Gonzo, but that's not what I meant. It's not that they can be gonzo. It's that they can be very dramatic.
Oh, not like the Muppet?
Wait, what?
You're not going to run into Gonzo, the blue guy?
I don't think I'm familiar with that Muppet. What?
Wait, with Gonzo?
I didn't watch the Muppets much as a kid. Sorry.
Well, then.
Now I'm looking
everybody,
it up, though. Oh,
yeah,
I do know this guy. I did not know his name was Gonzo.
Brother, everybody, hey, Blue Sky, get in the chat. Just really get after Chase for this one.
I'm sorry that my parents didn't make me watch the Muppets.
Well, I'm sorry too, man. Yeah. They rock.
Yeah. Okay, that creates a lot more mechanical depth in the way we roll the world. And there's so much you can tweak with that too. Like,
oh yeah, and I think that like the tweaking is something that we can do like with the table, and also is the kind of thing that you could just give carte blanche to players to do whatever the hell they want with at the end of the day. Right?
The other thing too is like you could swap out all of these tables for different tables, and the core engine, like if you wanted to have like a theme swap of the game or whatever.
Yes, right.
And because all of the work is table writing for the most part. The core engine of the game is relatively simple. And so really like creating different theme like packs for this game would be really easy, where you could be like, here's the fantasy one, here's the Fallout one, here's whatever.
Right, and literally it's basically just like a postcard size thing of like, here's your table.
Here's your event.
It's a double. Yeah, it's like a double-sided thing of like, here's your events or your topography and events. Like,
boom. I guess you'd want to change the playbooks too, because they are a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, I don't think you'd have to change much though, especially if the playbooks are basically just prompts.
Right.
Or archetypes or classes or whatever you want to call
them. 100%.
Okay,
especially because phase 1 is like, I love that we're keeping phase 1 so rules light or so whatever, because then the rest of the game is so table heavy.
Yeah.
And rolling on tables and knuckle measuring and putting it on a map, that then like the action that happens on the like the home creation, the character creation, and the events that happen are allowed to be just like, I don't know, we're role playing, baby, and it's just loosey goosey and whatever we want it to be. Whereas the actual mechanics come in from the making of the physical map where it exists in space.
I really like that contrast as well, because I think sometimes games that are very mechanically heavy can lean in and make the whole thing very mechanically heavy all the way across, and sometimes it can be too much.
I agree.
Thank you. What are you envisioning for the actual like wrap up drawing your map phase? Is it anything more structured than just draw a map that like sort of connects all of your points of interest and places them in the world?
Are you envisioning the like draw a map section like being like a separate sheet of paper from the point of interest that you had on, or is it? I wonder if we frame it then, because like if we're talking about like this game is your cartographers in media res, I wonder if then it is like you're back home and the uh the point crawl that you've done to this point are your sketchbook notes. They are purely your notes. Now you need to present something. Like now you need something like here's what you're presenting to the council, here's what you're presenting to home, here's what you're just showing to mom and dad, because this is the world that you've discovered, and maybe there is a a final sheet of paper or a final thing to have like a to have like a something pretty like without. So then if that's the case, then because then I think like then we actually the artifact of play becomes like here's an actual map as opposed to here's a line drawing to this point and then a three knuckle line drawing to this point and a two knuckle line drawing to this point. Then you actually just have like a here's a topographical map with things on it rather than a what would look like a road or a trail. Like I think
Uh-huh.
that like allowing a fresh map then it would take away that like road and trail thing, because then if depending on what you found you're like, hey, the way that we went really actually sucked and nobody would actually want to do it again. We're just trying to show you what the land looks like.
Yeah, so I started to write because I really like that idea. The framing of like on your return, you must show the village a finalized map of something like
Yeah.
that is very fun to me. So like draw a fresh, broader map using the points of interest that make up your sketches you took on your journey. And I'm already thinking about like ways that we could keyword things in this game to make
Yeah.
it the and how we could keyword them to make the theming really good, but also like just calling the points of interest like sketches on the map or something like that.
Yep.
Maybe we find a word somewhere between like points of interest and sketches so that we
Yep.
can frame the actual points of interest as like the sketches or whatever. I'm not
Yep.
sure if that works, but
No, I know exactly what you're saying, and I think like keywording that to be like this is just a doodle, this is a note, this is a, your playing of the game is just your sketchbook is your are your notes,
yeah.
and this is your topographical notes. Now you need to have a finished product that you can show that you can present and use the things that you. I think that then that also kind of informs like what happens on a player's like if players have their own notes or their own like, if there's a sideboard for like chatting or like obviously it can just be done over the table talking, but like to keep these things straight of like, hey, here's our point. We had an event on this point. Here's what we saw. But like what you were saying a few moments ago of like, oh, it felt like the mountain ranges like kept jutting to the east in this like depending on the event. Like there should be uh after each event there should be like a thing like, hey, make sure you take notes on like how big does this mountain range feel? Like how was there any like does it feel like you're coming up on a coastline? Does it feel like this? So when you make your finished product, it can actually look a little bit
I
prettier.
love what you're saying, right? So I'm thinking like you have the point and then you have your point that you sketch and next to
Yep.
it on the map you could just write your
Yes.
notes.
That's beautiful.
And
That's beautiful.
and maybe you make sure to write the notes in a place so like maybe it would actually go like over here or something.
Sure.
Because or for listeners, just not in the path of your next line basically.
Yeah.
Because then you can have notes written on the map. And I was writing this out as you were talking because I really love that idea. Write out notes about the area and the journey from one point to the next.
Yes.
So then you have some framing about like, okay, now that we found this next area, and maybe this comes with a couple of like paint the scene questions basically
Sure.
of like and honestly paint the scenes for both these should probably be integrated into the topography, but like a paint the scene for the location you end up in, but also for the journey.
Yes, 100. Paint the scene, and that's really cool. And I think that's a really fun like in between each roll, in between each like player's turn. I guess if players are taking turns rolling on their on like where we're going potentially. I don't know if however it is, but like in between each point, paint the journey based on what's happened. Take notes on that. So then now we know that the final phase, like the point of the game and the point of the final phase is to have a very like a true to world presentable map that you would take back home.
Yeah.
The second phase, the playing of the game is is a pure notepad, so you can do the final phase the best that you can do it.
Yeah, and then so truly it is draw a fresh broader map using the point of interest sketches
Mm-hmm.
and notes. So you know what I'm thinking. The more we talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
the more it's feeling like it could very easily be a solo game. And I realize that this is a late in the game to be bringing this up. So maybe this is just something for us to mull over as we build this out and think about it.
Yeah.
But this would, I think, be a pretty engaging solo game as well. If you have a set of big tables, and then when you're noting down on your map, all of your notes become okay. So like, here's what this area is and what it looks like. Answering your paint the scenes and stuff. Here's what the journey was like, or maybe you do like journey. Here's what this area looks like, and then here's what I encountered here, and you just journal basically, but it's all done through this sort of like sketchbook.
Oh man, you're 100%. You're so right. Like I think that there's in like the best solo games. Like I'm in a campaign of I'm to go back to Shadow Dark. Like I'm playing a solo dark game with one of my best friends right now, and we're playing like a duo dark game where we're just
Okay.
like, yeah, we're just like letting the Oracle still be the Oracle, but like I control two of the PCs and he controls two of the PCs.
Sure.
Like that's great. Like I love something that is like, yeah, this is a solo game, or
Something
is
that the guy who runs Pandion, he said in I think it was an interview on Talk of the Table recently. He mentioned that one of the things they've been doing a lot in their game design is making games that are solo first, but can expand to accommodate basically as many players without really anything changing. And so that's been on my brain a lot, and that is, I think, why this came out of my head, is because you could play this solo in the exact same way you play it with a group. You would
yeah.
just extend who is, like it would become collaborative instead of
It would become collaborative,
internal.
and I think that also like because I love the way like how can you key in on this solo, and then what is like what changes in the game when you add players. I think that that makes the flavor questions that are specific to each archetype even more important,
Yeah,
because when you're
totally.
playing it solo, you're playing as one of the archetypes. If you're playing with a group, then those flavor questions, like you get that extra depth every your single playthrough, like the chances are so much higher. Like, oh, I have a vagabond and a scholar
hmm
and a nutrient scrubber with me, and so we have all this extra depth.
I know that there is at least one solo cartography game, but I've never read it. This is making me want to go check it out once we've kind of wrapped this, so I can see what they have done exactly, because I
Yeah,
think it's called Cartographer.
some kind of map-esque games that are like very, very, very rules light in like the bookmark type of like bookmark game type of world that like play into this a little bit, but nothing that I can think of at the moment that is like has is as much depth of like the tables of topography versus events, and then also incorporating a myth and a legend.
Well, and I was gonna say most of it is very creation focused, not very play focused, and
Right,
I
right,
think
right.
having it be a little bit more split is interesting. Anyway, sorry, that was kind of a
No,
tangent,
no,
but
listen, good digression.
do you feel like anything's missing here from our notes in order to be able to like come back and write this up into an ash can, basically?
Right, yeah. I would like to. I don't think it's necessarily missing. I will. I would like to come back to this like in the middle of the phase two kind of element of like when do we roll, like what are the like D60, the engine of the D66 table, and like when do we roll what is a topography versus an event type of thing.
Sure.
And I think that like defining that a little bit more, but I don't necessarily think it's like as far as the core of what's happening in the game. Man, the only thing that just came to my mind is like passage of time. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
while we're on the journey, but I don't necessarily even know if that's important because that really only comes into play when you're talking about like again rations and that type of thing. But it's the only kind of like variable that comes into my mind of like how long it took to chart the Louisiana Purchase, so to
Well,
speak.
and things that are like still sitting in my head are like you could really integrate like a passage of time thing for if you wanted to make this legacy game of some kind.
Sure.
And so I'm just going to make a little note at the bottom that's like things in my brain. These are just things that we've talked about, but like don't necessarily have a place to fit it in right now. And like the biggest one is like legacy / generational.
Agreed. How does play continue? How does it move on?
And maybe the answer is it doesn't, right? Like, but
that's fine with me.
But I could easily see a world where we build each. This is so much homework. Each set of tables has 3 answers to each role, and they're the ages or the generations.
Oh man, baby, that's a. That's hours and hours of table writing, but like, hey man, what else are we doing?
Because it is a lot of table writing. Because if you're at like if you're doing 10 d6 tables basically, and then you need 3 for each, you're looking at like hundreds and hundreds of little topography things, events.
I think that like as it stands, this is kind of maybe jumping the shark here, but like I think that like. The joy, like the tables that we have as are in depth enough that like if you have a legacy game where you just accept like, hey, like we've encountered this world as much as we can, now it's time for us to pass this map on to somebody else, you don't need to adjust the tables at all because those things will be different and like what they discover will be different, besides like leaving some like keying into that like legends table again.
Well, so the big thing I'm thinking about is like, so let's say each like set of d6 or set of d6s, because it's like you have your first 1 through 6, your second 1 through 6. So if each of those sort of like hues to a bit of a theme on like the topography, because then you have sort of like biomes or whatever. It doesn't have to be strict, but loosely.
Yeah, roughly.
Then you get this sort of like time passing, the world is changing vibe. That's why it really sticks out to me in my brain, because that's really cool to me. It's so much work, and you could always just do like 2 generations or something like this, so it's just 2 sets. But anyway, just a thing that's sticking out in my head. So that's the but also just generally legacy / generational stuff. Are there other things that we've talked about that are like sticking out in your head but we haven't like solved for?
I am curious how the prophecies and legends, like kind of like playbooks, so to speak, will work their way into, because then again we're talking now. I think when we originally started this game, we were like, yeah, D6, a simple D6 table, and now that we've come up on this like D6 with a growing mechanic type of thing, which I think is really interesting and provides with so much depth of world and replayability, even with the same table that you have. I'm curious how like each of those legends or each of those prophecies will work their way in uniquely.
Well, so the prophecy and legend table technically is just a bisected D66 table.
Right.
Because of the D6 roll at the beginning and then the D6 roll for each specific prophecy later. So it's just a D66 that we are doing 1 roll ahead of time.
Ah, man. Yeah.
Which I think that has the potential of being interesting, where like if one of your prophecies is like strange beasts that spit fire, like the Here Be Dragons thing, and your players go off and they find some weird scorches maybe, but they don't find anything about strange beasts that spit fire, then maybe they'll come back and they'll be like, that's bullshit. But maybe that's just because they rolled on the second table that like the dragons had all flown up into the mountains for the winter or whatever.
And it's what it is.
Or the summer. I don't know. What do dragons do?
I don't know. The cold-blooded, nobody really knows.
So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff with that is potentially very cool.
I agree.
Last question before we wrap up. Any thoughts on a name?
My mind is like the most beyond the I really love this like prophecy and legend kind of integration. The other unique part about this game is our use of like its notes, to the point where it's like we're using our fingers to judge distance.
Yeah.
And like something about knuckle map or like something to the effect of like
Knuckle map. That's
I
so
don't
funny.
think knuckle map is it, but like something that is like that really talks about the scrappiness of your topographer, your cartographer.
Hmm.
Something that really leans into this idea that like at the end of the day, your final goal is to have a presentable map, but like the real meat and potatoes of the game is this just like you're taking notes with literally all you have in your pocket and
This
you're
is
drawing pictures.
I think this maybe evokes the wrong thing, but my brain, as you were talking about that, my brain immediately went to conscripted cartography or conscripted cartographer. The problem with that is I think it evokes the wrong thing.
Yeah, right. I don't think it's quite. It's evocative. I don't think it does. But like, yeah, I don't know. Oh man. But yes, for me, it's something that it needs to be something that evokes that. Like,
I was just thinking of this idea that like, oh, you're basically conscripted to go do this by your village. Like they're
sure,
like, someone needs to go do this. Might as well be you.
might as well be you.
Which, but I think conscripted has too many ties to like military
I
conscription.
agree.
So it's, but I wonder if there's another, because you're right, there is like a scrappiness to it that is interesting. And looking up synonyms, I'm just going to be like, compelled cartography? No, that's not the right.
Yeah.
Begrudging cartography. That's very funny.
Begrudging cartography. That has a big role play indication that I don't think is quite exactly what we're
No,
going for.
yeah.
Uh, um. What if it's just like scrap maps?
Ooh, that's a good name. That is a very good name. I like that. Okay, that is at least a good working title. And
That's a great Ashcan title. We'll call it
yes,
Scrap Map.
and we can mull on it as long as we want post
Yes.
that. So, okay, cool. Before I do an outro, anything else you want to go over about this real quick?
No, man. I think I've had so much fun in this. I'm so excited to see where this goes.
This 2 hours flew by.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I can't believe I can't believe what we have in 2 hours, right?
It's crazy too because it's actually really hard to keep these videos or these podcast recordings to
Mhm.
like an hour, unless I like set a timer and was like, we got to be done. But I don't really
Right.
want to do that because
No, I don't think so.
it's fun to let it kind of flow a little bit.
Yeah.
And most of the time when I record for 2 hours with someone, there's 30 minutes that can be cut of like spaces
Totally.
of thinking of whatever. So, it's almost never like an issue on that in that regard, but it is so funny how quickly 2 hours can go when you're like engaging in a really like engaging prompt and
Yep.
some cool ideas. So, and I think this is a really cool idea. This is up there for most homework given from
Yeah,
from
that's
an
in
idea.
like and let me tell you, that's not how I came into that. I was like, yeah, I'd love a simple, I'd love a thing, and then we just like,
And really, it's just writing that many tables is tough. So
it's a lot, but I listen, it also it's like simple table writing. I don't know, like prompt writing in table form is like okay. I think it's okay. It's not. It takes a long time. I don't think it's like the kind of thing that you're gonna think about like how do I write this? How do I like?
yeah,
You just kind of blast them out there.
the harder part's topography, I think, because you got to start getting
Yep.
creative with your topography.
Yep. I agree. I agree.
Well, thank you, Phil, for being here. This has been a great episode. I think we have a fantastic game that is shaping up here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am so excited to see where this goes. Map making games have always been interesting and fun to play with, but it's never been one that I don't think I would have tackled this without rolling the prompt.
Yeah. That and those are the best kind of prompts. Honestly, is
Yeah.
like and Erica from episode 5 of last season and I have talked as well about how like the bingo board prompt that we did, like we would not have, neither of us would have done that if we hadn't rolled that. And that's like, so it's so much fun to just be like forced to engage with a mechanic or an idea that you never would have, because you just start to think so much more creatively.
Totally.
So, well, it's been great having you. Thank you everyone for hanging out, listening along. keep your eyes open for Phil's upcoming Blue Sky that he'll be making here soon. It'll probably be in the show notes, and if it's not yet, it will be eventually. So
my first post will be making fun of Chase for not knowing who Gonzo is.
Damn, that's fucking rough.
Take that, dude.
Wow. Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here, but slightly less now. And thank you, everyone, for showing up and listening through. If you want to find the game, Scrap Maps, or whatever we've decided to call it, if that's not the current title, it'll be on our itch page, as well as the Gamestorm Patreon, and it may be on Phil's itch page as well. So check out all those different places. You can grab the game, or just download the notes and follow along with our crazy thought processes. So thanks for listening, and hope to hear from you next time. Hope to see you next time. Bye!